Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, dear students. Good morning to all participants of the conference. My name is Dailės, and I am one of the organizers of this conference. Let me sincerely welcome and invite all of you to 2 days of remote discussions on the topic of conservation of art and architecture. We have just seen a short animation film about the restoration department of Vilniaus Academy of Arts. It was an animation debut of Rūta Nazaraitė and Milda Vaištaraitė, 2 daring conservation students who take on new challenges without a trace of hesitation. Well done, Rūta and Milda. Thank you. We started thinking about this conference more than 12 months ago. We wanted to invite all of you to Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, for a discussion about the issues of conservation and training of conservation specialists in higher education institutions across Europe. Unfortunately, the present circumstances still do not allow planning for live events. However, if you take a look at our conference program, you will see that we have managed to bring together quite a party of interesting people to this online discussion. We have 15 teams from 9 different conservation schools in Europe who will offer their views about conservation of artworks and architecture. The teams consist of conservation students and their teachers. All of them are here to share their thoughts about the problems they face when carrying out their course tasks, graduating works, or summer practices, and about the solution they find to address these problems. We will have presentations from both the experienced conservation specialists and from students. For some, perhaps, it will be the first appearance in the role of a speaker. But I trust we all appreciate the extreme importance of analyzing the process of conservation. And I am grateful to every one of you who ventured to share their works and issues they faced in the process. Sharing and discussing, in my opinion, are the sources for further learning and improvement. Now, it is a great honor for me to introduce Audrone, the rector of our academy and a great fan of conservators, who kindly agreed to share some welcoming remarks with you. Let me give her the floor now.
I am so excited and at the same time very proud to welcome you all at the International Online Conference, Art and Architecture Conservation Training in Europe, Relevant Experiences and Mastering Conservation Methods, organized by Restoration Department of Vilnius Academy of Arts. I am sure that today and tomorrow we will listen to many interesting presentations of students and their professors from our long-time academic partners from Latvia, Portugal, Sweden, Poland, Slovenia, Croatia, Estonia. I do hope that this conference will be a wide step forward towards better and stronger cooperation of European art schools and universities who deal with the restoration and conservation issues at their institutions. So wish you interesting, good day tomorrow and today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rector, for your welcoming remarks. We are glad that you appreciate the importance of training future conservation specialists. And now, let's get started with the working part of the conference. Our first session is dedicated to conservation and restoration of easel paintings. I will hand over the moderator of the session, Associate Professor Alvydas Mandeika, who is also the head of the Restoration Department of our Academy. Alvydas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daile. Good morning, who is listening us. I am pleased to begin our online conference and say thank you to all the speakers at first and for all participants too. All themes of the conference are very interesting and actual, so I think these 2 days will be meaningful for us. I want to remind you that we will have 2 online sessions today and 2 online tomorrow with discussions time, of course, and lunch break, of course. You can type all the questions to the speakers in the field at the right side of your screen. But when asking, indicate please to which speaker your question is addressed. Your questions will be very useful for our discussions and will be answered after all presentations at the end of each session. Let's start. 4 reports will be presented in this session. And now I am pleased to call the first speakers from our neighboring country, Latvia, Inguna Namike, under the supervision of Professor Dace from Latvian Academy of Arts. But first, I would like to introduce our speakers very briefly. Inguna Namike in 2014 began to study the science of art at the Department of Restoration at the Art Academy of Latvia. For final thesis, she chose to research and conserve painters Ticheev altarpiece Christ and the Apostle Peter from 1849. The painting belongs to the congregation of the Roman Catholic Church of Our Lady Sorrows in Riga and is considered a cultural monument of national significance. In 2020, she graduated from the Latvian Academy of Arts with master's degree in restoration. In master thesis, she conducted research on the reconstruction processes in the conservation of easel paintings. She have applied her research in practice, performing the conservation and reconstruction of the 18th century painting, Temple Ruins by an unknown artist, adapting it to the dimensions of the overdraw. She have also participated in monumental paintings restoration projects as Celsvaine Castle, Varaklāne Castle, Alexander Pavilion, and in Aluksne, and St. Jacob's Cathedral. During her studies, she have attended several scientific conferences on restoration in Krakow, Tartu, Riga, and Lisbon. And now she ran her own restoration workshop in Riga. And Professor Dace Paje, in 2007, after graduating from the Art Academy of Latvia, she created her own restoration studio. Her main clients are churches of various denominations with large altar pieces, and her most recent restoration work appears in Kurmene Church, Laduga Church, and Siguldas Newcastle, where 4 large format works are located. In 2018, she started working at the Department of Restoration of the Art Academy of Latvia. She trained first-year students and supervised bachelor's and master thesis. Since October of the last year, she had been the head of Department of Restoration. We congratulate you on this appointment. And now, conference report, its name, Conservation and Reconstruction Processes of Temple Ruins by Unknown Artists. So they will acquaint us with and encourage discussion on the ethical aspects of the process, on restoration of painting when using enough rare but exceptional reconstruction method in restoration. Reconstructions in heritage artworks restoration always are very relevant and delicate theme. So the screen is yours, Inguna and Dace. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Inguna Namike. Last year, I defended my master thesis in the restoration department of the Latvian Academy of Arts, the construction process in conservation of easel painting, conservation and reconstruction of the Rundāle Palace Museum Overdoor. My supervisor was restorer master Dace. The word overdoor comes from the Latin superport, above the door. First of all, I will introduce you to the upper door areas of Rundāle Castle. The interiors of the castle are given luxury by the various decorative panels above the doors, according to the wall decoration of each room. They are sculptural or painted superports whose shape and plot are determined by general concept of space rotation. Here you can see examples of artistic stucco superports in the Golden Hall and the White Hall. The Duchess boudoir has preserved polychrome superport frames made of stucco mass, which have included thematic paintings on canvas corresponding to their size and shape on canvas, which have not survived to the present days. They have now been replaced by new ones. In the Duke's second office, paintings above the door directly on the walls. In several rooms of the castle, there are wallpapers that cover the empty upper door areas, which are delimited by painted or gilded wooden profile strips. To fill in the missing top door areas, the museum buys appropriate paintings in auctions. Appropriate paintings are bought for the top door panels in walled art auctions, which after restoration of both painting and the frames enriches the museum premises. In the process of reconstruction of the castle, paintings stored in the museum funds, which have not been found in a suitable location so far, are used rationally. In the practical part of my master's thesis, restoring the unknown author 18th century painting, ruins of the temple that is owned by Rundāle Castle Museum. In most of premises of Rundāle Castle, the superport places have not been filled so far, which is understandable because matching ready-made superports to the required size with a bent lower edge is almost impossible. It should also be taken into account that the dimensions of the upper door areas in the castle premises differ from each other, which first cannot be visually noticed. Therefore, in the restoration process, it is necessary to choose either historical copies or adapt the original work to the necessary size. Both of these options have been used in the overdoors in the castle. My task was to adapt the painting Grundal Castle to the upper door area of the museum's Duke Auditorium, overdoor, increase painting size and create a concave hem. The Grundal Castle Museum has bought a painting at the auction of the Lampert's auction house in Germany. That was founded in 1845 and specializes in the auction of works of art. Author of the painting is unknown 18th century Italian school painter. There is no official information about the previous restoration of painting, but there was evidence that confirmed it has been previously restored. For example, they changed the original size of painting, cut and duplicated all 4 edges, as it is likely to have already been adapted to the size of another supraport. Non-professional and careless restoration are evidenced by original painting has been resized in style that is not in accordance with the restorer's ethics. This is also evidenced by the changed composition. When painting has been dragged onto a subframe, the side edges are bent around its slats along with the original of painting, which at the point of folding form extensive losses of ground and paint layers. The lined edges on the back of the painting are not in a straight line to the original, and the glue is covered more than necessary, thus staining the base material. This can be well seen in the photo under UV light. The material used to duplicate the borders is not selected according to the original canvas of the painting. The oldest color layer losses are repainted in inappropriate color tonality in same places, even without primer laying on dirty surface. They are darker and smeared over the author painting. At the loss of the paint layer, the primer is laid, regardless of the limits of loss, across the original painting, without removing the ground remnants from the painting. Storage under inappropriate conditions has resulted in loosening of the base material and resulting in new losses of primer and paint layer over the entire surface. Repainting can be well seen in UV light. A little about the storyline of the painting. The painting is a classicism-style historical figural landscape with Roman temple and ruins. Work of art belongs to so-called genre of architectural whims or capriccio, which was very common in the 17th and 18th centuries. Capriccio is accurately and detailed painting style that would develop of architectural representation and plastically modeled volumes, in which the shadows are painted thinner, but the lights a little thicker, with visible strokes of color. During the restoration, varnish was thinned for the entire surface, and repaintings were cleaned. color layers have been strengthened, removed dirt from the recesses of the paint layer texture, which was located under the varnish layer. The lined canvas on edges from the previous restoration were mechanically removed with scalpel. Aligned folded the original painting on both sides. Removed glue residue from the back of the painting. A new canvas has been prepared for lining edges, and edging has been lining by the collision method, edge to edge. The painting is put on a new suitable subframe with a concave at the bottom, installed in the places of restoration primer, paints and ground loss. The surface of the painting is covered with new layer of varnish. Then areas of the author's paint layer loss and abrasion areas were retouched with oil paints. A sketch of composition of reconstruction of painting has been created by selecting analogs. The following analogs were found. The painting is a classicism style historical figural landscape with the Roman temple and ruins. The work of art belongs to the so-called to the genre of architectural whims, which was very common in the 17th and 18th centuries. Painting was performed imitating the handwriting and coloristic of original painting. The painting is made with oil paints. The back of the painting has been converted. And now the painting has been placed in the upper door area in Duke's apartment, and for now is visible only to the museum staff.
Changing the format of the original painting, thus changing the composition, is not a generally accepted principle of restoration, but there are exceptions. This painting led to discussions between the student, the supervisor, and the owner about the ethical aspects of increasing the size of the painting. As Inguna mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there is a possibility to make historical copies instead of adjusting the original works to the required size. An agreement was reached on adjusting the size of the painting to the surface of the room door with a bent bottom edge, creating it as an overdoor. All conservation and restoration processes are documented and justified, which proves that the respective painting enlargement reconstruction process has been carried out in accordance with the principles of conservation ethics.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Inguna and Dace. An interesting solution. I think will be questions about your work, about your restoration decisions. So the second presentation by student Milda kaite under supervision of Professor Audrone Petroševičiūtė, Vilniaus Academy of Arts, Lithuania. Briefly, I will present speakers as well. Milda kaite has a bachelor degree in restoration of easel paintings from the Vilniaus Academy of Arts. During her studies, she restored modern and contemporary paintings from the 20th century and icon painting from 19th century. She deepened her knowledges of textile restoration while reconstructing parts of a border of tapestry from the second half of the 17th century and restoring an embroidered picture mount from the 19th century and the objects from 20th century Lithuanian folk art. She has participated in the Homo Faber Young Ambassadors program organized by Michelangelo Foundation in Venice and internship in the Pranas Gudinas Restoration Center in Vilnius, Lithuania, and Open Care in Milano, Italy. Currently, Tichkaite is studying restoration on easel paintings at the master's level at Vilnius Academy of Arts. And briefly about Professor Audrone Petroshevičiūtė. She studied textile at the Vilnius Academy of Arts. In 1993, she joined the Pranas Gudinas Restoration Center in Vilnius, Lithuania, as a textile restorer. Among the artworks, she has restored the 17th and 18th century tapestries. She has also restored heraldic pieces of ball dresses from the 1810s and other projects from the 20th century, which included tapestries, the procession banners, and the flag of Lithuanian naval forces. As an artist, she has participated in exhibitions in Vilnius, Kaunas, Palanga, and Stockholm. As a restorer, she has participated in museum projects as a helper prepare numerous expositions of Lithuania's National Museum of Art, the Museum of Applied Arts, and the Palace of the Grand Duke of Lithuania. In 2019, she obtained the qualification of expert of textile restoration. And now about conference report. Problems in restoration and the decay of procession banner with oil paintings. The case of Church Heritage Museum in Vilnius. The main aim of this presentation is to analyze the phenomenon of procession banners made of textile and easel painting or painted elements using the procession flags stored in the museum. The problem of the decay and decline is quantity is analyzed. So the screen is yours, Milda.
The topic of this presentation, problems in restoration and the decay of procession banners, dated the end of 19th and the beginning of 20th century with oil paintings, the case of the Church Heritage Museum in Vilnius, is a short glimpse on my current master thesis. A Church Heritage Museum in Vilnius is rich in banner collections, but I chose to examine this kind of collection. Firstly, I'm going to present the main problems that arise during the conservation of banners with oil paintings. For that, I shall use examples from the Church Heritage Museum in Vilnius. Then I will introduce you to the practical case study for my master's degree, highlighting the main problems and future interventions. Lastly, I will shed some light on possible solutions to the problems faced during conservation. The dilemma in restoration of painted processional banners is getting more and more attention worldwide. In Lithuania, there have been several cases of restored banners of fabric and one-sided painting, usually sewing them together after the restoration. Concerning the restoration of double-sided paintings, some have been stretched on a wooden frame using craft paper, but there haven't been paintings and restorations of such banners that would include a double-sided painting and a textile fabric. As this investigation consists of banners with oil paintings, the main problems that arise during conservation are deformations, textile and canvas tears, paint layer craquelure, paint or color layer losses, lacerations, disintegration of painting and textile part, and incorrect storing. First example demonstrates impact of incorrect storing. There are multiple deformations and paint layer cracks. The second detail of banner painting has a great amount of lacerations and paint layer losses. The pictorial surface is exposed due to various reasons. The detail from the banner with a one-sided painting, the Baptism of Christ, shows a piece of painted canvas detached from the rest of it. This painting is in need of new textile support as the pictorial integrity is lost. Here, the detail of the banner with a double oval-sided painting Saint Casimir and Our Lady of the Gate of Dawn also indicates deformations. Such deformations result from the loss of stretching, making the banner painting more susceptible to paint layer cracks and losses. Very common problem when facing a banner conservation is textile part tears and lacerations. In this case, we see silk lacerations, tears, and huge fabric losses. This banner is in need of conservation procedures to stop the fabric degradation and support the delicate state of the silk. Last example illustrates yet another problem, fixing painted canvas into or onto the textile part. As you can see here, the painted canvas appliqué is semi-detached from the textile part. This last example demonstrates the choice between using adhesive, mechanical stitching, or lining procedures in order to conserve the painted appliqué. Now I'm going to present my practical part of master thesis. It is a processional banner with a double-sided painting, Assumption of Mary and Guardian Angel, made in 1861. Used in processions in Western Lithuania, it was made of a painting dated 1861 and original banner fabric. The pattern of the fabric is common for the second half of the 19th century. The only parts that might be added later are tassels. Here. Thorough scientific analysis stated that the painting was made by sizing the linen canvas from both sides using glutathione glue and preparing it with glutathione glue and chalk-based ground binded with oil. Later, this painting was covered with a soft resin varnish that reacts to ethanol. Another interesting and outstanding feature of this double-sided painting is that the places where cinnabar, Prussian blue, or brown pigment paints were used have a craquelure that indicates the loss of binding material in the paint. Here, in the upper side of the slide, you can see the list of main problems faced during the conservation of this banner, starting with the visible deformations, darkened retouch, paint layer lacerations, textile tears and darning, and finishing with the problem of reintegration of restored painting and banner fabric. This processional banner with a double-sided painting Assumption of Mary and Guardian Angel on the other side was made by sewing the painting into the woolen fabric. Afterwards, a decorative copper lace was machine sewn on the woolen side and directly through the painting, thus hiding the line where the painting and fabric are sewn together. When examining the banner before all the restoration processes, I noticed that Machine stitching contributed to the paint layer cracks and loss. The copper lace was rigid, inflexible, and breaking. The fabric of the banner has tears and darning in woolen cloth here, and cotton parts for the hanging of the banner. And you can see corner deformations on this double-sided painting due to the loss of stretching. The painting has multiple lacerations and darkened retouch, better visible under UV light. It is clear that this painting was restored a couple of times and revarnished following every intervention. You can see that the retouch, for example, this and this, are different in shades. And this indicates that one was earlier than the other. These gesso fillings of those old restorations are not evenly applied, and some particles are already lost. After the evening of deformations, the paint layer losses will be properly integrated. Currently, the painting is dismantled. After facing procedure using tissue paper and 3% hydroxypropyl cellulose solution in water, the painting was pressed to even the deformations. Due to the lockdown of institutions following COVID-19, no further action was taken in conserving the painting. On the other hand, the conservation of the banner fabric has been more successful. Conservation procedures concerning the textile part included the removal of unprofessional darning and washing of the banner, tassels, and decorative copper lace with a surfactant of 1% concentration. After this procedure, the pH value of the woolen fabric changed from 3.5 to 6.37. On this slide, there are a couple of examples of professional darning completed using dyed woolen threads. Currently, the banner is under a process of darning of the multiple, various-sized holes. The future interventions will include painting restoration by filling in the paint layer losses and retouching. For that, rabbit skin glue will be used as an adhesive for additional strengthening of paint layer and as binding of the chalk-based round fillings. The retouch will be carried out using easily removable watercolor. As for the banner fabric, its future and further restoration will include strengthening of decorative parts such as tassels and copper lace. The last step in the restoration of this double-sided banner is the reintegration of painting and textile part. Simply sewing them together would not resolve the loss of stretching. Painting edges are weak. The decorative copper lace should be conserved without leaving space for further deterioration. That is why these two methods are considered for the reintegration. The first method, presented in the webinar Structural Treatments on Double-Sided Paintings in 2020 in Turin by Pier Paolo Nicola, suggests a magnet system with iron bars for stretching of the banner painting. It works as the magnet attracts the iron bar overlapped in a cloth that is attached to the edge of the painting. Here in the picture, you can see that this cloth overlapping the iron bar is covered with a decorative lace. The second method, presented in the same webinar by Eugenie Knight, considers a theoretical spring and polyester thread system for stretching of the banner with a painting. Polyester threads would be glued onto the surface of the painting, then inserted into the fabric and connected to the springs on a frame that would exhibit the banner.
Currently, I am carrying out an experiment on both of these methods to prove their functionality by creating 2 new double-sided paintings for each method. These paintings are sized with rabbit skin glue and grounded using emulsion, that is chalk, drying linseed oil, and glycerine glue ground. So basically very similar materials as the original double-sided painting presently under conservation. After painting them with oil paints, I covered these paintings with Dahmer varnish. When those paintings are ready, they will be inserted into the banner fabric using techniques in the earlier mentioned methods. Also, I'm considering attaching a decorative lace on the edge where the painting meets the fabric using Velcro tape pieces, very small, only on the corners of the lace. And if it functions, I will use the same method while attaching that rigid copper lace on the restored painting and fabric. When this experiment is finished, me and my professor will decide which or whether to use one of these methods. Lastly, I would like to mention a couple of solutions for the problems faced during the restoration of painted banners. As mostly silk or wool are used for historical banners, the tear mending and strengthening should include the same or morphologically similar fabrics and lining procedures with easily removable adhesives. When choosing an adhesive for canvas tear mending, its response to relative humidity, elasticity, thermal degradation should be taken into account. The same characteristics should be applied for the adhesive to strengthen the paint layer that is flaking off, for example, of this silk background onto which the paint was directly applied. I put this example intentionally because while speaking about one-sided or double-sided paintings in processional banners, it is impossible to exclude the painted textile banners. Both of these different types of processional banners face the same problems of lacerations, tears, paint layer loss, improper storing. On the next slide, we can see a painted silk banner, St. Vincent de Paul, from Church Heritage Museum in Vilnius. A very delicate cleaning and lining procedure of such painted silk banner is an example that in order to carry out the conservation procedures, there must be a thorough examination of paint, fibers, and suitable adhesives. Cleaning of the fabric is also another task when thinking of unstable colorants, painted textile, soon painted canvas parts while preserving authenticity of the banner. In such case, a good solution would be considering using gels. Lastly, the problem of reintegration or storing is key in conserving banners with oil paintings. In my search, I found a couple other methods used in restoration and stretching of banner oil paintings. In the poster supporting a group of double-sided trade banners, Gwen Spicer suggests a construction of wooden frame, magnets, and stainless steel boards for safe storing of double-sided banners. In the article Restauro di uno standardo dipinto a olio su 2 facce, un nuovo metodo di intervento per il trattamento di tali nei supporti tessili, authors present a reincorporation method stretching banner painting into a wooden frame using polyester fabric that is adhered to the edges of the standard and screws that stretch it while pulling the adhered fabric. There are a couple of other solutions published recently. In the webinar Structural Treatments on Double-Sided Paintings, Ezio Buzzegoli presented a restored double-sided painting display. For that, he extended stretching edges here, while gluing polyester fabric and fixing onto them spring system, later hidden in a wooden frame. In the same webinar, Carlos Serino and Antonio Iacarino Idelson presented another spring system for stretching a double-sided painting, which includes wires, springs, and polyester fabric coverings on the painting edges. To sum up, in conserving and restoring banners with oil paintings, it is important to choose proper adhesives, materials, and reincorporation method, not to mention the relevance of correct storing and preventive conservation. A restored banner is like an organism that functions only in the established conditions. On these conditions depend what adhesive to use, whether the deformations renew themselves. The whole idea of stretching the banner with the double-sided painting is to improve the visibility of both sides, conserve the painting, and preclude the folding and deforming of the painting, and, for example, ease its transportation. A very different question here is the stretching of the painting, as the banner itself is designed to float in the wind, thus having no stretching support. This ethical question that concerns the authenticity of the object, in this case banner with a painting, cannot offer answers to the problem of conserving a painting that is constantly affected by physical forces. Maybe participants would like to discuss or share their opinion on this thought. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Milda. Yes, it's a very deep problem at first in conservation, when we have objects of different material properties in one object. So we have, I see we have many questions for discussions and for you and for our first speakers. So, but we must continue, as I told, all discussions will be after all session. The third presentation by Marta Alejo, under the supervision of Professor Ain Bailao, Faculty of Fine Arts of University in Lisbon, Portugal. And briefly, I will present speakers as well. Marta Alejo was born in Lisbon, Portugal. She graduated in the field of science of art and heritage, and earned her master's degree in the science of conservation, restoration, and production of contemporary art from the Faculty of Fine Arts in the University of Lisbon, with her dissertation focusing on chromatic reintegration in contemporary art. Currently, she is a fine arts PhD doctor candidate in the specialty of science of art and heritage in the same institution. And Ana Bailao is an assistant professor at the Faculty of Fine Arts in the University of Lisbon, Science of Art and Heritage Department. She earned her PhD doctor in conservation of cultural heritage from the Portuguese Catholic University in collaboration with Centro de Investigação em Ciência e Tecnologia das Artes and Instituto de Patrimonio Cultural de España. Her doctoral research discussed the criteria and methodologies that may help enhance the quality of retouching presentations. She is a founder of the REC group, which provides a framework with which conservation specialists can discuss and work on the retouching processes at the interdisciplinary level. Since 2004, she has been carrying out conservation and restoration work. And conference report, the use of Tri-funori as a binding medium for chromatic reintegration in contemporary unvarnished paintings. The aim of this proposal is to show how new conservation project Tri-funori was used as a binding medium for chromatic reintegration in unvarnished oil and acrylic paintings. So the floor is yours, Marta. Let's start.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present my work here at the International Conference. The presentation is entitled The Use of Tri-funori as a Binding Medium for Chromatic Reintegration in Contemporary Unvarnished Paintings. We will present the chromatic reintegrations performed with Tri-funori on oil painting and acrylic painting on canvas. And this work was part of the research during the master's degree at the Faculty of Fine Arts in Lisbon. So we will start to do a brief contextualization where I present the objectives that led us to the development of the dissertation project, followed by the criteria used for the selection of the materials for chromatic reintegration. I will talk about Tri-funori and compare it to other materials. And finally, we will describe the methodology for the chromatic reintegration process and present the results of the mock-ups. In the context of the master's degree, in which the objective was to study different materials for this process for the chromatic reintegration of paintings by a Portuguese artist named Jorge Martins, mock-ups were developed based on his real unvarnished oil and acrylic artworks. We conducted face-to-face interviews with the artist, visited his atelier, observed his works, collected information about his materials, such paints and brushes, and studied his pictorial technique. Making the mock-ups allowed not only to study the artist's pictorial technique, but also to have surfaces where different materials could be tested to perform chromatic reintegration without interfering with the original work. These are the mock-ups. They were all developed with the artist in his studio. They are all based on real paintings, like I said, and they represent very specific pictorial techniques for certain periods of time and the way the artist used color. Of these 9 mock-ups, all were submitted to a damage simulation to provoke abrasions and detachment of the pictorial layer, and so afterwards the material of chromatic reintegration could be used and tested. The ones marked with the yellow arrows were also artificially aged for about 500 hours, which is the equivalent of about 60 or 70 years, the age of the original paintings. And now we are going to discuss these 3 paintings. The first ones, the blue and this one in the body was painting with oil, and the red one with acrylic. Here you can see on your left side the original painting, and followed by images that were part of the process to constructing the first mock-up. And this corresponds to the before and after damage and agging simulation. And as you can see, all mock-ups have different pictorial techniques and pictorial representation, which allow us to work in different contexts during the interventions. This one represents a monochrome, and this one represents a human figure. And again, the original painting on the left side, followed by images from the process and paint preparation at the atelier on the right side. Here, the before and after again, where you can observe the differences between the new one and the other one now with damages. And now the last mock-up, the acrylic one, respectively, the original painting followed by the creation process. You can observe here the final result with the before and after. Given the dimensions and location of the damage we simulated that have a greater impact while reading the work, and taking into account the solubility of the pictorial layer regarding the novelty of Tri-funori as a binding medium, the material selection process for chromatic reintegration focused on the stability of the material, its aqueous properties, followed by its removability and toxicity. Also, the color matching and its visual properties were implied. These characteristics have led us to the selection, like I said, the Tri-funori. which is derived from funori, a natural polysaccharide extracted from the red algae Glidopeltis. This product, for being natural, can vary in terms of quality. Is part of the Japanese tradition. Its use eventually extended internationally among conservators and restorers, and is applied as an adhesive consolidant for architectural, paper, or painting conservation. Later, it was developed at funori, which is a more purified solution, and then in 2012, they developed Tri-funori, which is very similar to funori, but this one is a dehydrated version. It's like funori, funori, it's used as a fixative, a cleaning agent, and adhesive. We observed that it was also a useful material for a painting medium for the use of a handmade paint to apply during chromatic reintegration, especially for contemporary and varnished surfaces, because it's water-based, so it can be easily removable, and it's is non-toxic, and because it dries matte. Since for this specific work we only did practical tests such as samples and chromatic reintegration on the mock-ups, we decided to compare the behavior and visual properties of the Tri-funori with other materials. And as we can see, Tri-funori is the one with more matte properties, followed by gouache, the commercial paint, and then Aquasol Burger showed to be too glossy for this kind of interventions. We also made a list with the pigments that were needed to integrate the main palette, and the choice was made upon the pigments used in the mock-ups and considering the general palette of the artist. To create colors such greens, for example, or to create lighter and darker tones, we used mixtures from this list in not mixtures already made commercially. So this is the first step for the chromatic reintegration of the first mock-up. What we did was to deconstruct the original mixed from the artist paint tube, as we can see, and depend on that, we adapt our choices to the pigments with the best properties and characteristics for the intervention here on the right side. And considering the materials, of course, we had available. Since the color matching showed to be hard to achieve, both because the complexity of the original color and the changes that Tri-funori provoke, we tested different proportions and quantities of pigments. The predominant color in each mixture presents bigger quantities in comparison to the rest. The precise quantities could easily adjust color match with the addition, in this case, to achieve the deep blue, marigold orange, which decreased the saturation and darkened the blue tone obtained in the first mixture, and add phthalocyanine, which conferred the tinting power to the color. In this case, for the deep blue, phthalocyanine was only added by the end for having a strong tinting power, which was the contrary process for the lighter blue. With this strategy, we achieved good results, although we observed that organic pigments such as Ferrari blue, which is the equivalent of phthalocyanine and carmine rose or quinacridona, that we will see next, showed problems during the paint preparation, both in individual preparation and in mixtures. And these images show the results of the before and after the chromatic reintegration. However, after a few weeks, we actually observed that some pigments that showed problems during preparation were the same that became porous in this painting in both colors. As a result, we had to remove them and reintegrate it again with gouache. The same did not happen in the following paintings. Here we followed the same process. We have a list with the original pigments we used, and we only created mixtures for green areas, which was made with these pigments, which are from the artist studio. And we were made by using pigments from the previous list. Like I said, we used to create green lemon yellow and then Ferrari blue, which is the equivalent of phthalocyanine blue. Here you can see again the results before and after. And now a more detailed area. We noticed that Tri-funori becomes the color lighter. Here you can observe in the blue areas, in the pink areas. And again, but this time, this is a more recent image of the process from 2021. And as you can see, the interventions staying on their place. Lastly, for the acrylic painting, which had a very bright and saturated red, we again studied the quantities needed to achieve the best color matching, and the results are a mixture with cadmium yellow-orange and cadmium red light. The predominant color was cadmium red, while with the orange added luminosity and brightness to the tone. Depending on the damage area, both color matching and mixture could be adjusted of one of the pigments, red or orange. Contrary to the chromatic reintegrations carried out on oil models, the acrylic one didn't present any problems. And this is the result of the intervention where we can see the area in which we applied the color. Here we can observe the light area here and here. The chromatic reintegrations were punctual, even though some of the abrasions were too long, but one of the main objectives was to study the material and their application in situations like this one, and of course gain more experience for a chromatic reintegration process. The mimetic method was applied by small dots to give a properly reading of the work, and to tone the darkness spots left by abrasions on the intervals of the linen, titanium white were applied. We also tested with Tri-funori, but didn't work so well. With this work, we could observe that Tri-funori is a good solution for matte surfaces because dries matte, has low viscosity, is easily removable, and is non-toxic, although presents a weak dispersion of some organic pigments and in color matching. After we prepare the paint, we had to test it before and wait to dry completely, and then, if it was a suitable color, we applied it on the painting. And also, it is a very expensive material. To conclude, unvarnished paintings and the materials used by artists are all different. For this case, and after studying artist material and pictorial techniques, and after testing materials for chromatic reintegration for these specific cases, we observed that Tri-funori could be one of the best solutions. And since we create a representative paintings, we could test it and observe its visual properties and behavior. The quality of the work will depend on the substrate where the paint is applied, its durability, the conditions that paintings will be subjected to, since both Tri-funori and oil and acrylic paintings are susceptible to alteration of humidity and temperature. You can actually read more about all the process with the overall of the materials that were tested at this article. And to conclude, I want to say thank you again for the opportunity to show this work here at the online event for the International Conference for Vilnius Academy of Art. And thank you.
Thank you, Marta, for your interesting experience and experiment for all of us. And the last presentation in our first session is by student Rūta Nazaraitė under the supervision of the Professor Dalia Klajumienė, Vilnius Academy of Arts, Lithuania. Briefly, I will present speakers as well. Rūta Nazaraitė is a first-year master's student specializing in easel painting restoration on the Vilnius Academy of Arts. During her bachelor studies, Rūta mostly worked on conservation and restoration of 19th and 20th century easel paintings on canvas. In her master's studies, she shifted her focus towards easel panel paintings, and is currently working on the complex case of the 17th century sacral panel painting. Rūta received her professional training abroad in Vienna, Austria, it was twice. First, she enrolled in an exchange semester at the University of Applied Arts, Vienna in 2017, later in 2020. She had an internship at the Paintings Gallery of the largest art museum of Austria, the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. In addition for her professional related tasks, Ruta coordinates the Student Ambassador Program of the Sustainability and Conservation Organization at the Restoration Department of the Vilniaus Academy of Arts. Moreover, she has volunteered in the Sustainability and Conservation Organization's administrative body since November 2020. And now briefly about Dalia Klaumienė, PhD doctor, is a historian, cultural heritage expert, director of the Institute of the Art Research of Vilnius Academy of Arts, and a professor of the Restoration Department at the Vilnius Academy of Arts. From 2014 to 2017, she was head of the department. Klaumienė's scientific interests include Lithuanian art of 16th to the early 20th century, decor of secular interiors, and protection of cultural heritage. She is the author of 3 monographs, as well as over 80 scientific articles and more than 50 popular science articles. During the last decade, Klaumienė has focused her research efforts on investigation interior decor of the 19th and early 20th century secular architecture of Vilnius. And she is a perpetuum mobile, not only on this, but also on many other conferences in Vilnius Academy of Arts too. Thank you, Dalia. And now, conference report by Ruta. From restoration of a painting to its attribution to a famous artist. So this presentation is like a report, is like an investigation by police and detective with an interesting but not yet finally ending, I think. So the floor is yours, Ruta.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to say that I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate in this conference, and I would like to thank our Vilnius Academy of Arts team for hosting this event and making it come true. I would also like to particularly thank the main initiator and the organizer of this conference, our professor Dalia Klaumienė, who is highly passionate about heritage preservation. Dalia Klaumienė is one of the leading art history researchers in Lithuania, and I am proud that she is also the supervisor of my investigation. I appreciate the significant help and encouragement I receive. The topic of my research is not based on the art conservation and restoration itself, but instead, I would like to share my experience of how the treatment of the painting led me to historical research with fruitful results. I will start with brief information about the painting, which I restored in 2016 and which became the inspiration for further research. Then I would like to introduce you to the bumpy path of my investigation, and finally, I will present to you the artist I discovered and his intriguing fate. To begin with, in the second year of my bachelor studies, I received a large-scale painting, Kolkos Power Plant Construction, as a restoration course test. This oil painting on canvas was painted in 1953 as a final work by the Vilnius Institute of Art student Zema Brukman. The subject of the painting has typical portraiture of the corresponding period of time. The year 1953 falls into the early period of Lithuania being under the repression of the Soviet Union. At the time, artists were strictly controlled on the content they create. Likewise, the Vilnius Institute of Arts was also carefully supervised to follow the points of the ideology. The depicted idyllic storyline of people at work, as well as the vivid color gamma, are the main points to recognize the style of the ideology of the Soviet Union. Nowadays, these ideology-based artworks are usually not being exhibited, mostly because of the quite recent history of the repression. Just like others, the painting Kolkos power plant construction was being kept in the storage of the Vilniaus Academy of Arts Museum and did not attract the attention of researchers. As the painting support had some major issues, it needed an urgent restoration, and that's why it was brought to the Academy's restoration laboratory. As you can see in the pictures, one of the most visible damage was that the whole surface of the painting was covered in a thick layer of dirt. Here you can see zoomed in areas. As the main issue, the painting also had two tears in its support, which caused significant deformations of the canvas. In the pictures, you can see it from the front and from the back side. After the examination and evaluation of damages, the conservation and restoration treatment was carried out for the painting. To mention the main applied procedures, first the brittle paint layer around the tears was consolidated. Afterwards, the formations of the canvas support were flattened and tears were repaired. Because of the deteriorated size of the canvas, the strip lining was applied. After restretching the canvas back on the stretcher, the paintless areas were primed. Visually, the surface dirt cleaning procedure was very effective and satisfying. It revealed vivid colors of the painting as the paint layer regained its primary brightness. And finally, the paintless areas were retouched. Here in the picture, you can see how the painting looked before the conservation and restoration procedures. And here, you can see how it looks now after everything is done. During the conservation and restoration treatment of this painting, my attention was caught by the several signatures of the artist Brookman. I particularly admire the elegant handwriting on the stretcher, which you can see in the picture. That led me to wonder who this artist was. At the archives of the Academy, I found out the full name of this artist, and it was Zema Aronovich Brookman. It sparked my curiosity to figure out how his later art would look like. However, I could not find any further details about him or his later career. Even though this painting was created quite recently, in the second half of the 20th century, there was no information about the artist in the local artist catalogs or on the internet. Only one auction website stated an approximate date of death of the artist Zema Aronovich Brookman in the 1970s. Maybe I would have left this research aside if not one intriguing detail I found while surfing the internet. As I was searching for an artist under the name Zema Brookman, my attention was caught by another artist, Yevgeny Brookman. I found out that Yevgeny studied at Vilnius Institute of Arts and his birthday, as well as studying years, coincided with the information I had about Zema Brookman. For me, it was astonishing. It gave me a great reason to think that Zema Brookman and Yevgeny Brookman could be the same person. Nevertheless, the surnames coincided. The names Zema and Yevgeny are completely dissimilar and have no rational connection with each other. Different names can mean different people, all the more so in the post-war turmoil of the time, a clutter of names could have been expected. All these questions made me keep looking for more arguments to confirm the identity of two Brookmans. There was only one way to solve this question of identity. Directly reach out to the relatives of Yevgeny Brookman or another corresponding person. I must note that Yevgeny Brookman passed away in 2011. 5 years prior, I have started my research. According to the given context in Yevgeny Brookman's official website, I sent an inquiry about the personality of Zema Brookman with the intention to get to know more about this artist, which I already had a great curiosity about. I did not receive any answer. Then, with the fortunate coincidence on the internet, I was lucky to find a student of Yevgeny Bruckman. His name is David Dace, and he is a contemporary performing artist in painting, drawing, and filming. David Dace confirmed that Yevgeny Bruckman was his teacher from 1998 till 1992. As David knew nothing about Samuel Bruckman, for more details, he gave me an email address of Yevgeny's wife and widow, Lara Bruckman. When I received no answer from Lara, I found myself at a dead end. I did not see any more possibilities to find out whether Samuel Bruckman and Yevgeny Bruckman are one and the same person. At the time, I gave up my research with this unsolved question and put the whole investigation aside. However, this feeling of incompleteness and curiosity about Samuel Bruckman made me come back to my collected information and reconsider it again and again. Once I was reading through a conversation with David Dace, I realized that he mentioned a woman who, according to him, knows about Yevgeny Bruckman art. Unfortunately, the artist had no contact details of her. And then a simple but all-changing idea came to my mind: to find that woman, Ekaterina Bagdavace, on social media. And again, a lucky coincidence brought me to the right person. I found Ekaterina on the Facebook platform, and when I asked whether she knows anything about Yevgeny Bruckman, she confirmed that she is a close friend of his family and is in contact with Yevgeny's wife and widow Lara. So finally, to my biggest joy and relief, Yevgeny's wife Lara assured me that Samuel Bruckman and Yevgeny Bruckman are the same person. So now I would like to present to you the personality of Yevgeny Bruckman and his difficult path to becoming a recognized artist of three-dimensional, volumetric, transparent painting. The details of his biography I received from his life from his wife, Lara Bruckman. Yevgeny Bruckman was born in a Jewish family on the 25th of January, 1925 in Vilnius. In the 1940s, when Yevgeny was 15, together with his family, he was deported to Siberia by Soviet ideologists. I must know the enormously big deportation scale, which was preceded by the Soviet government. There were at least 130,000 Lithuanians deported, those who were considered by Soviet ideology as unreliable. Deportation in Siberia meant 12-hour-long hard labor days together with deprivation of food. Luckily, in the year of 1943, Yevgeny was called up for the army and left Siberia. Released from the Soviet army in June of 1946, Bruckman entered the Vilnius Institute of Arts to study painting and environmental art. After 6 years of studies, he graduated with the painting Kolkos power plant construction, which I was introducing at the beginning of the presentation. Also, for 2 years after his studies, he was teaching at the Applied Arts College in Kaunas. In 1957, Bruckman was given an assignment to work at the Union of Artists in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. There he soon proved to be a talented artist. Yevgeny participated in exhibitions and was teaching at Dushanbe's art college. Unfortunately, his innovative creations were not accepted well by the board of the Union of Artists, and he was accused of being abstractionist, formalist, cosmopolitan, and admirer of Western arts. His studio was plundered together with confiscation of all his artworks. Fortunately, Yevgeny did not give up, and even though he was forbidden to participate in artist exhibitions and other cultural activities of the Union of Artists, he kept teaching, changed his living location several times till 1970s, when he decided to go back to Vilnius with his family and fight for the right to emigrate. In 1973, Bruckman and his family finally moved to Haifa, Israel, and just in a few months, Yevgeny made his first personal exhibition and reached a high success. All of his 68 surrealistic works were sold. Soon after, he became an acknowledged artist of Israel, and his success only grew. In the 1980s, he was invited to exhibit his work at the Warren Robinson Fine Arts Gallery in Detroit, USA. And since then, his painting grew in popularity in the American and Canadian art market. After much turmoil in his life, Yevgeny found his peace in Northern Europe. From 1985, Brookman and his wife Lara were permanent residents of Denmark. From 1985, he also became a member of the Artists Union of Denmark and of the UNESCO International Art Association. He was exhibiting his works in famous galleries of Denmark and Sweden. He also arranged personal exhibitions, had commissions for monumental works, design, and interior decorations from various companies in Sweden and Denmark. At this period, Yevgeny's creation reached its maturity. He started to paint freely, passionately, with volumetric forms in both vertical and horizontal movements. His shapes contain light, tones, semitones, reflexes, and shadows. The light became the principal factor of Brookman's painting and his strongest tool. Yevgeny Brookman passed away on the 2nd of March 2011 at the age of 86. In the history of modern art, he was entered as the founder of the new direction in three-dimensional, volumetric, and transparent painting. To conclude, I am happy to announce that this research helped to attribute the painting Kolkos Power Plant Construction to the world-renowned creator Yevgeny Brookman. The painting, which came to the restoration laboratory of Vilniaus Academy of Arts in an emergency condition, is now restored and was brought back to the Museum of the Academy. Despite the restrained style of the work and the constraints imposed by social ideologists in his later works, Yevgeny Brookman revealed his exceptional thinking and character, overcoming the challenges of his life and implementing his ideas in a more modern artistic expression. I am delighted that this search for the artist yields an incredible and unexpected result, returning to the history of Lithuanian art the name of a world-known artist forgotten for more than half a century. Thank you.
So thank you, Ruta. It was very interesting for hearing again the story. I hear about it a little, but now it's bright new. Thank you. It was the last speaker for this session. And so we have many questions. I see it on my other screen. Thanks a lot for all speakers, for Inguna and Dace, for Milda, for Marta, and for Ruta. And we're starting discussions and questions. So I think we will answer by all questions with separate for each speaker, like with dozens for speakers. And I think the first questions were dedicated to Inguna and Dace, and we'll start to answer. You can start to answer it, and so maybe I think you saw questions for you, Inguna. Can you answer, or I need just to repeat it, or maybe I can try maybe to repeat the question for you. I'm sorry, I will find it in my other screen. I'm looking on other screen. Yes, so many questions. I found one first. Inguna Namike and Dace. Thank you for your interesting presentation. I have a question regarding the enlarging of the painting. Could you answer about it? Oh?
Matching ready-made superports to the required size with a bent lower edge is almost impossible. It should also be taken into account that the dimensions of the upper door areas in the castle premises differ from each other, which at first cannot be visually noticed. Therefore, in the restoration process, it is necessary to choose either historical copies or adapt the original work to the necessary size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. We have other similar question from Dailė Klajumienė to Inguna, and that's a thank you for your presentation. The question is, how do you choose the reconstruction method? How you considered other options?
Metodų. We didn't want to choose another option.
We didn't want to choose any options.
Mm-hmm. So my question is very similar too. Maybe do you have any historical material about the former of this interior? For example, old photos, old maybe pictures, drawings. How this goal looks like? Does it? What kind of subraports was around? What kind of pictures were in this hall? Do you have any information?
No, we don't have any historical pictures about superports in castle.
Mm-hmm. So it's and all this story, this picture about what kind of subject on this picture, it was chosen by museum or just for like imagination,
Museum chosen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So I'm looking maybe one question for you. I'm looking for question board. Looking. I found just 3 questions for you, I think. Maybe you remember something more.
I don't see questions.
You didn't see on computer?
No.
No? Strange. Okay. Do we see it? It's for Ruta. Mm-hmm. So taip. Sunku atrinkti čia klausimų. Primesta. So I think I think no more questions for Inguna. I don't see more. And for Milda.
Thank you.
Questions for Milda, I think. Thank you for Inguna. Question for Milda. Please define more precisely. Have the double-sided paintings are painted on one canvas or on two self-contained canvases?
If I understand it correctly, well, concerning my master's thesis and the practical work, the painting is painted on one support, that is one canvas, and the paintings are painted on both sides. In Church Heritage Museum, when I examined the collection of such banners, almost all of the others were also or a one-sided painting, or for example, the oval painting, it was also one painting with two painted sides. But yes, there are possible solutions when there are two paintings sewn on the fabric, and they are separate paintings. But in my case, it's one painting.
Yeah, thank you, Milda. And I see next question for you. Is it possible after restoration to use this flag in a religious procession outside in various weather conditions?
So I saw that there were similar questions. So the system, for example, with magnets, it is designed for a display in museum where the conditions are controlled. And for example, if we would take the banner outside, there's wind, humidity, and all the adhesives used might not be correct. The deformations would renew themselves, and it's well, as it is an object in exhibit, it is already not designed to be in open air. It is designed to be in museum. So no, it wouldn't be appropriate to use it again in processions.
Thanks. Other one is a very interesting question for you, Milda. Would you consider conservation of painted banners, textiles, an exceptional specialization of yours, something that distinguishes you as a specialist?
Well, about distinguishing myself from others, maybe it is only easier to find the answers to the questions when you have tried restoring textile, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert, and that it also very distinguishes me from others.
Yes, so thank you. I think that's all questions for Milda.
Thank you.
I'm looking. Now we have some questions for Marta, but I don't see her. Didn't see her on screen. She's not connected, maybe. Yeah. So I have questions, maybe. Yeah, I think she's answering on desk. So, okay. So a couple questions for Ruta. Ruta, question for you. Hello, Ruta. No, it's answer for you. Sorry. Question. Where is the question? Many questions for Marta. She is answering on writing, on taping it. Yes, I found a question for Ruta. Do you know anything more about Brookman's activities in Kaunas Art School?
So the things I know about Brookman and Kaunas Art School, that he was teaching there after he finished studying in the Institute of Art, and he was teaching there drawing and painting. And this information I received together with his biography from his wife. I tried to check this information in local artist catalogs and catalogs of Kaunas Art School. However, I did not find any further information on that. But in my plans for further investigation, because I'm adding more and more details to it, my task is now to question some people who studied at this time from 1954 to 1956 there in Kaunas Art School, and maybe they have some memories and some stories about him. So it is due to the further research, and now I have facts only from the relatives of him.
Yeah, thank you, Ruta. Very similar question from me too. I would like to ask, did not be able to detect Brookman's paintings, more paintings which he made after graduating Academy of Arts. How he turns to abstraction. Maybe you found some other pictures of 60s or 1956, 57s, or just you found just abstractions.
Unfortunately, Brookman's relatives did not share with me his earlier creations, so I have only works which I gathered on the internet, basically. And how he switched to surrealistic artworks, there was actually he started to paint surrealistically in Tajikistan. And when he moved to Haifa, then he started his abstract painting. So I think when he was in Tajikistan, he started this modern approach to art, which turned out in conflicts with the board of artists of the Soviet Union. So it was kind of not a very smooth transition from this. From this realistic to surrealistic style.
Thank you. And I have one question for Marta. Maybe I can write. I'll try to write for her. I want to ask her about this Tri-funori, how it works with varnishing materials. It's not possible to use, or it's how it changes after using with varnishes, because we often have especially old paintings with varnishing material on the top layer. How it changes this Tri-funori, maybe she have experience with in this opinion. So maybe I can write for her. So, no more questions, I think. I would like to thanks again for all speakers for this session. On this session, it was new for us all, maybe. And we have now lunch break till 2 p.m. Thank you very much again. And after lunch, we'll start the second sessions, and it will be moderated by my colleague, PhD Dr. Jurga Bagdzevičienė. Thank you for all participants again, and I think we'll see you after lunch. Guten Appetit.